Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to our weekly Sabb. We were unable to come live last week because most of sabbatical officers were undergoing their training section. But we are here once again with the senior leadership team of the university. I have with me Karen Lawrence and Guy Daly from the university, who are here to answer most of your questions or all of your questions which you've been asking with regards to returning back to the university. Hi, Karen, and hi, Guy.
Hello.
Yeah, we have some questions today with regards to studies, cost and living, online learning facilities, disability, international students, and operating needs. But before we dive into these questions, Karen, I'll start with you. Would you like to introduce yourself so that our audience and students will know what you do for the university?
I'm Karen Lawrence. I'm the Group Head of Health and Safety for the whole of the university and all of the CU group and everything. My normal job involves helping advise about the health and safety risks involved in all of our learning, teaching, research and other activities that we do. But obviously I've become health and safety about COVID, and it's a very different challenge that we're all facing at the moment.
Thank you, Karen. Guy, you've been here with us once, apart from the one we did while we were still on campus. You've come to our Sabb. So I'll still love you to introduce yourself, and so students will still get to know more of you.
Lovely. Thank you, Augustine. Yeah, so my name's Guy Daly. I'm the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Education and Students, and as Augustine said, I think this is the second one of these online, and we did a face-to-face one when we were allowed to in about January, I think it was.
Okay, thank you very much, Guy. Without wasting much of your time, I'll dive into the first question, which has to do with studies. So the question is, when will students know exactly details of timetables and teaching arrangements ready for September? So when will it be ready, so students can know when and how to find it?
Shall I have a go at that one, Karen?
Yeah.
So we're doing lots and lots of timetabling work at the moment. It is extremely tricky. The goalposts sort of change often, you know. So, but there are usually, I think, continuing students get their timetables by about the end of July, I think, for the following year. That's what I've been told. I think it's going to be tricky for us to get them by then, but we will try and get them as soon after that as possible. We need to do so, obviously, for our continuing students. We also need to do it for our students that we hope will be joining us for the first time as undergraduates or postgraduates. And really, you know, we need that information by the time of clearing and all that sort of stuff. Otherwise, people will not have a clear picture of why they're coming to us. So we hope sometime between end of July and middle-ish of August. If I just say a little bit about the sort of scenarios we're working on, you'll have seen, hopefully, from the Vice Chancellor's communication that we hope if we don't go back into lockdown and we have the social distancing requirements as defined by government at the moment, which is of 1 meter or more, then we are confident that all students on all courses would be able to have approximately 5 hours of sort of face-to-face learning with academic or other colleagues, and then other activities around that they could do on campus, which we've still then got to think about. And I'm coming on to other questions, but we've got to then think about, what does that mean? Would that make better sense for that to happen for a student for one day? Or would it be better to split it off across 2 days or even more? And what we're considering there is a number of things, and this is Karen's area. First of all, you know, if you split it up over a number of days, you're more likely to have more students on campus, which makes it a little bit more difficult to manage. And we're going to have to manage the number of students on campus at any one time, not just in the classrooms, but in the library and the hub and all that sort of thing, to make sure that everywhere is safe. So I think our thinking probably at the moment is probably you'd split it over 2 days, because also you want to minimize the number of times that students who are commuting in travel in to protect their safety if they're using public transport, to protect the demand, to manage the demands on car parking and all that sort of stuff. So that's our thinking at the moment. So we're trying to work on getting timetables out to people as quickly as possible, end of July into August, and with those sorts of scenarios that we're playing around with. But Karen, do come in.
Wrong, but we're very much aiming at trying to work out what's the stuff that, if we do it on campus, gives the most value or is the most essential as well. To try and make sure you get the most value out of your time on our campus.
Yeah. But we're also mindful that the student experience is not just about what happens in the classroom. In terms of one's learning, one's using the library and other things, one's discussing with other students and everything. So how do you ensure that happens? Also mindful that that for students who are in our halls, that hopefully they've got good facilities, they've got Wi-Fi, broadband, and a space to study, but we don't want them to be isolated just in their rooms, as it were. For students who are commuting in, they may not have the best laptops, the best Wi-Fi or broadband at home, or even a dedicated physical space. So therefore, we've got to think about how we support them as well outside of the classroom.
Thank you very much, Guy. The second question has to do with safety precautions, and Karen, I guess this is for you. So it says, what safety precautions will be in place for teaching sections? Will there be less people in seminars? Guy has touched on that a little bit. And will students be instructed to wear face masks while on course?
Sorry about that phone. I'll press the
button. Oh,
okay.
yes,
I think Guy was touching earlier about some of the ideas. So yes, we will definitely need to manage the number of people on our campuses. Our modelling shows that you can't have nearly as many people safely in the buildings. So it will be about making sure that maybe, I think, Guy, you might want to explain a bit more about teaching pods, but that's one of the ideas we're looking at. We're also looking at making sure that we use the most effective ways to keep people safe as much as we can. So using social distancing to its best effect. We're investing heavily in how we clean buildings. So looking at innovative ways of increasing the cleaning, especially in those really busy areas where there's lots of people. We'll be putting hand sanitizers in lots of parts of campus. We're also looking at ventilation. So the science is showing that the ventilation systems in a building are an important factor to consider. So it's a big job, but we're modelling all of our systems, looking at how the ventilation will affect the safety in classrooms. We're also looking at things like the toilets and the circulation spaces. So you may see different routes around buildings. If there's going to be a congestion point, we might put a one-way in. We will have a lot of signage to help explain this for people across all of the campus. And we also might be looking at things like booking systems. So when we talk about the library, it might be that you have to book access, you can't just turn up. So we can make sure that it's fair and everyone will be able to get their time on campus. We're also trying not to rely on, when people talk about face masks and coverings, from a health and safety professional's point of view, you try to aim for the most effective way of doing something all the time, the thing that protects everyone. And face coverings are a part of that story, but they're not particularly PPE as I understand it. So for me, that's things like when you're working in a laboratory and you have to wear a lab coat and glasses and gloves, of course, we'll still be providing that. And if, because of COVID, we see a space where we think, actually, this needs PPE, there's no other way around it, again, we'll provide that. But on the whole, that's not what we're trying to rely on. We want to go for the most robust ways. In terms of providing face coverings, I think at the moment, the plan is to make sure they're available for purchase through shops at a reasonable price, but I don't think we're particularly planning to hand them out at the moment. Guy, is there anything else to add I haven't picked up on? You're on mute.
Other than to tell me to switch my mute off, no, I think you covered everything. Other than in terms of, we also respect the right of people if they wish to wear face masks or other protective equipment, if that makes them feel safer, then we would obviously support that right.
And encourage,
we've always done that. We've always done that. You know, we particularly some of our international students from Asia come from a culture where you more normally wear them. So we do that. In terms of the education pods, what we're thinking about there is if we can have it whereby, you know, when people are coming in, they're coming in as part of a particular group, as it were, and that might protect them and others better, that they're not exposed to lots of other people. And then if there was an incident and people had to go into quarantine, it would only be a few people rather than everybody. So we're that's part of our logistics that we're working on as well.
And that's probably worth adding a little point there on. We will also be having procedures around what we do if something does go wrong. Because it's a big campus, it would be foolish to not plan for that. So we're working very closely with the public health teams to agree what our process will be, but there'll be some really clear, robust plans for if somebody does come down with symptoms, if someone is self-isolating, we'll have plans both to make sure we manage that in terms of spread and also to support those people involved, which we did a lot of before lockdown and are expecting to do again a little bit afterwards.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That was lovely. The question came in while you were speaking, Guy, and you touched on it before the question came in. It was regards to the pod. So a student was asking if they live with their colleague who is on the same course with them, and would they be able to be in the same teaching pod at the same time?
Those are the sorts of things we will try to accommodate. But it is a bit tricky and everything. But if we can, you know, because on the one hand, you know, we're already trying to timetable things. We don't necessarily know where people will be living next year and all that sort of stuff. But if we can do that sort of thing, and/or, you know, we can exercise some flexibility whereby it might be possible. This is not a guarantee. It might be possible to move somebody from one pod to another to take account of that sort of a thing. So we will try.
We have looked at it. It's very complicated.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Guy. Lovely responses. The next question is, if lectures are to remain online during September, would the price of the semester change accordingly to suit the change in delivery? We will be paying £9,250 for the whole year if a semester is completed online. So would they be paying the same amount?
Okay, this is a very complicated one and a very contentious one, I think. First of all, we'd say a number of things that our costs are not likely to be any less because we're delivering things slightly differently. As an example, it may be that whilst we have lectures going online, and that might be more, which will be the case for all sorts of reasons, including that we think that it's a better way of people learning so that you can use the valuable time to do other things. So you might think there's a saving there, but actually, if we're going to be teaching in small groups, then we're going to have to use more staff to do that. So those are just two of the very basic things, I think. And then on top of that, we don't actually really get sufficient funds to pay for what it costs us to teach, certainly UK and EU students. So the university sector in the UK in England has argued for some time with the government that 9,250 doesn't actually cover our costs, and that not individual students necessarily, but government should increase the grant that's available to cover those costs. I'll give a couple of examples. We don't do medicine, but it is said that if you're a medical student, it probably costs at least £30,000 per year to educate that medical student. Nursing and allied health professions, which I am more familiar with, before we moved to self-funding for those, you were getting 10,000 or more for that. So I'd say that you know we won't be saving money. It will be costly to still deliver this way. We're investing. The amount of money that we're investing as we switch from Moodle to Aula, because we think it's a better virtual learning platform, there is a significant investment of university resource in that. And then that's all before, as Karen was suggesting, you know, we're going to have fewer people in buildings. That's going to be more costly for us and all that sort of stuff. We're going to have the additional of cleaning, of security and all that sort of thing. So generally speaking, we're not going to be saving money. And that's even before you take account of the precarious state that some universities' finances are in, which, you know, if you'll see in the news.
Thank you, Guy. So to touch on that question again, it says, if we don't come back to the physical aspect, just everything is still online, is there any chance that this fee could be reduced?
I don't think so at the moment, is what we're saying. Our position is that our fees will remain, irrespective of which method of teaching and learning you're experiencing.
Thank you, Guy. You made mention of Aula. So there's a question that says, why change the online platform to Aula when students are very unfamiliar with it? It is another unnecessary disruption at this time of great disruption for students and staff.
We think it's better. We don't think that Moodle is fantastic. The piloting that we've done for Aula, in the first semester, small scale, and then bigger scale in this third semester, certainly, we've had very positive feedback from students. We're doing a research piece at the moment to get greater data, but we honestly feel that it will provide a better learning platform, a better learning experience for people. I suppose it is possible to phase things in, but then you balance that against saying in some ways that if you've got something that's better, you know, why wait and why disadvantage those people who by getting them to still use the system that we think isn't as good.
Thank you, Guy. The next one would be, students are getting less contact time, less engagement opportunities, and less access to resources such as career service, placement opportunities, and extracurriculars. How is maintaining the fees calculated?
I think I'd end up repeating myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but we do want to ensure that students get the whole experience and the whole support. So we are working on ensuring that either a return to face-to-face for things like careers, or we will increasingly have those sorts of support services available online as well. We've done it, I'm certainly sure that we've done it for Centre for Academic Writing and Sigma, whereby those advice sessions are currently being delivered online.
Thank you, Guy. Some of the questions are questions that cut across each other, so we'll manage it properly. This one is for international students. A number of students may have left the UK before lockdown. Is it necessary for those students to return if face-to-face time will be reduced? Okay.
So this is part of the dilemma of trying to please all the people all the time, as it were, is a cliche. But for some students, they're desperate for it to come back fully on campus. Others would like a blended or a hybrid. Others would like a continuation of everything online. We're looking at that. We're getting all courses at the moment to confirm whether or not it is possible to restart, as it were, in September, whatever stage you're at, and either study, if you wish to and wanted to, online until you finish, or online for the first semester, or there may be some courses, and it relates to other questions, where there are practical sessions that you have to be here for. So we're determining and we will confirm which courses can be done totally online, which ones you could do online for, say, for example, the first semester, but then there are things that you just have to do face-to-face, and those courses that from day one, as it were, require some sort of face-to-face. So we're literally going through every single course to determine which category each course fits into. The Vice-Chancellor said that we would let people know that by the end of the week. He said that in his communication. That's caused us a bit of speed up to do it, but hopefully we will get that done as soon as possible.
Great. So I'll look for another one that is not similar to what we've been asking. So this says, are the university-owned accommodation blocks going to be reopened for the commencement of the new academic year?
Yes.
So, Karen.
I don't know if yes, most of them are already open. We've still got students living with us, and we're still doing our best to look after them at the moment. Not everyone could leave, so we are still open, and every hall is being prepared for September.
Karen, I think this is for you as well. For any returning students, would they need to be isolated, self-isolated when they return?
Well, we're not really in charge of whether they will have to. That is a government decision. Currently, they would. It may not be the same position when we come to September, and we will obviously be building our plans and our advice around what that looks like. Guy, did you want to come in there?
Depending on where they come from. So
it could, yes.
UK students at the moment, apart from Leicester, which is going to be in a brief period of lockdown, rest of England, you can move around at the moment. But obviously, international students is very different. There is the government requirement, as Karen says, for 2 weeks of quarantine on arrival. But we are steered by what the government regulations are. Sorry, Karen.
What it does mean is we need to be flexible, and we know that. So we will need to have certainly accommodation contracts are going to start 2 weeks before term, or have the option to start 2 weeks before term, so that if people are required to come and self-isolate, the time is available for them to do that. If people are self-isolating, either for a quarantine or other reasons, we have processes in place to help people. So we can help with deliveries, waste removal, and we've got various wellbeing support services available for students in our accommodation.
Great answer. So for international students, travel, accommodation, and living costs will be very high for international students. Those students will be at a disadvantage. How will university help mitigate this?
I don't know whether you want to have a go, Karen, or I'll have a go.
Our accommodation team shared an answer with me beforehand, so you can see if you add. But they said that there are Phoenix scholarships available that help include subsidising the cost of accommodation, and there's a wide range of different price points available through our accommodation. So obviously, we hope that will help cater to those problems.
Yeah, and I think we have, and QSU has provided extra support in terms of hardship and food banks and that sort of thing. And for people in particular hardship, they've entered into new arrangements for how they would pay their fees. And in addition, what we've said, and it might be part of what Obi from Future Let's has provided Karen with. Unlike private landlords, if students need to leave our accommodation, then we under certain circumstances we're allowing them to break the contract. We did that when we went into lockdown. Those students that needed to go home, either in the UK or to their home country abroad, we allowed them to break that contract. And I think that cost the university between maybe £6 million, something like that, which is back to the point about, this isn't necessarily saving us money. There are additional costs in much of this.
Thank you, Guy. We have a couple of questions coming in as we're live. I'll just open the chat and find them. So this is, will assessment be completely online, regardless of whether students choose to blend or fully online delivery? If students choose to learn fully online rather than blended, is this something they can continue with for a whole year and the following year?
So that's back to the response of earlier. We're looking at each course and agreeing, confirming whether or not you can study it fully online forever, fully online for a bit, or because of the nature of it, you do have to be on campus for some of the time in a blended way. That the assessment bit relates to that. For a course that can be fully online forever, then obviously the assessment will be as well. For that you can start early, we would probably expect to have online to start with. We expect the assessment probably to be online as well. If you've got to be on campus from the very beginning, often that's about things like labs, workshops, and simulation, and there is usually an expectation that the assessment would be a face-to-face activity as well. So it will depend. But if you're going to be doing a course that we guarantee you can study online, either for semester 1 or forever, then obviously the assessment would have to be totally online as well. We have also made the commitment that we will continue to have our exams online, certainly for semester 1, and I think and hope that we would do so indefinitely. It just makes things so much easier for everybody. You've got to be a bit careful of it in terms of the nature of the assessment, in terms of what it is, but in terms of the logistics of not having over 20,000 exam sittings at the end of each semester, which is what we've had previously. So you've had to hire sports halls and all that sort of thing. And then, Karen has a headache in terms of health and safety, particularly at the moment. So, yeah.
Still touching on that same question with regards to international students. I know they are required to attend a certain number of lectures with regards to their visa, a Tier 4 visa. So the question is, are there any Tier 4 visa restriction that would prevent international students from choosing fully online if that were available for their course? So if the international student is in the country and they have an option of learning fully online, is there any visa restriction for that student?
I don't think so. I think the Tier 4 regulations have been relaxed, but we can get people who from our Tier 4 team to give a full and accurate answer. But things have been relaxed in a number of ways. First of all, if you continue to remain in the UK and studying, then some of the requirements about attendance and everything has been relaxed. Secondly, countries that have not supported for funding reasons, etc., online degrees have relaxed that temporarily or permanently. So that's helped us. And I think there's been a relaxation also about when visas start and end, and people not having to get a new visa if they've gone home and come back. But really, I think the Tier 4 team will be best placed to give a precise answer on that one.
It will, of course, depend on what the government says.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But both our government and the government and the education regulators of the host country that the student comes from.
Thank you very much. This one says, as a commuting student, will my timetable be condensed to help me organize my travel now that contact hours have been reduced? It will be expensive to travel every day for 1 hour of contact time.
Yeah. So again, that's something we were talking about earlier. In planning to have approximately 5 hours of face-to-face learning, we don't want to spread that out over 1 hour every day. That doesn't make sense at all for anybody. So what we're grappling with at the moment as to whether or not that would be either just one day coming in, but that's probably not ideal in terms of a student experience and in terms of the most effective way of learning. So maybe we would have 2 days of 2.5 to 3 hours, or 3 hours and 2 hours. So it would mean that somebody would only have to commute in a couple of days, which is good for their expenses, the environment, their safety. So I think that's where our thinking is at the moment.
Yeah, I think the process is very much looking, isn't it, building by building, course by course, what's going to make sense for those.
Yeah, thank you. It says, are there additional options around delaying or deferring available for students who are anxious about returning?
I think if people are anxious about returning, we would prefer them and not just for our self-interest, but I think for the best interest of the students, we would prefer them to maybe do an online option temporarily or permanently. Our experience is if you do defer, if you get off the treadmill of learning, it is very difficult to get back on it in the same way as getting back on the treadmill in the gym or whatever. It's hard work. You're more reluctant to and that sort of a thing. And then when you do, it's more difficult because you've forgotten things and all that sort of stuff. So we think the best advice is to continue as best you can. Our regulations do allow people to defer, though. I haven't checked them recently because something that one does have to consider is, I suppose, the demand on our university in terms of the site, the campus, academic support services. If everybody deferred and everybody wanted to restart next year, in a year's time, alongside new students and everything, would we have the space and the capacity to do so? So we do have to think carefully about it. But one's best advice, I think, is to continue rather than interrupt. It is more likely to guarantee success, I think.
And I think there are FAQs about this on the portal.
Yeah, probably you must have touched on this next question. It has to do with space and facility. So with regards especially art students, who says, we have, sorry, 1 minute. So, art students who will need studio or performance space access in addition to their 5 hours contact time. Will this be available and how will it be managed?
So is this a question about, say, for example, if I was an art student and I needed access to a studio in addition to my 5 hours of face-to-face? I think we would probably, in the first instance, we would say, let's try and use the 5 hours of learning allocation to do that sort of a thing. And therefore the formal teaching would be the stuff that we would put online, as it were. But there might be situations whereby students need and we can accommodate greater use of our facilities than just that 5 hours block, as it were. But again, that's back to all of our calculations and is on a building by building basis, because as Karen has hinted, some buildings are better than others, as it were, in terms of facilitating people in there, but also still exhibiting social distancing.
Yeah, and I'd imagine we'd be looking at that kind of booking option if there are facilities like that, to make sure that everyone has fair access at that sort of thing.
Yeah, thank you. This next one goes, is the university prepared for the additional load on the mental health or support service once students return?
I mean, we're continually investing and increasing the resources in terms of students' health and well-being, and we will look to continue to do that for sure.
And I think a lot of the services are all still available online now, one form or another.
Yeah.
What's the process for re-enrollment for international students? Will it still be face-to-face at the student center, or will this be done online? And when can students start re-enrolling into courses and university?
I'm not sure on that one. I think that we will do our best to ensure that people can enroll online, like UK students. Whether or not if you are back in the UK, as it were, as an international student, there may be the aspects of the documentation, etc., that you have to present and all that sort of stuff. Again, it's something I think we probably need to get a clearer answer on. And
we are still modelling some of the elements around that, yeah.
Okay.
But we certainly don't want to create a situation whereby there are queues and queues of students outside this student engagement centre. Yeah.
No, we will have a good.
Yeah.
All right. This is, as a student with learning difficulties, I fear that students like me are already at a disadvantage with only really having exams arrangements in consideration for assisting abilities. What additional measures are going to be put in place to assist disabled students and students with disabilities?
Well, we're looking at how students might be disadvantaged and how we can then overcome that, and that includes things like students' personal study spaces, what IT equipment they've got, access to learning materials. So we're conscious of that. We think that some of the shifts to online and blended actually support people who maybe have learning difficulties, because the material is there, the discussion forum and all that sort of thing can help. Whether or not we can do more than that in terms of I suppose greater time and accommodation in the same way as one would if someone was sitting an exam is something that we are considering at the moment.
Thank you very much. So I know you made mention of booking spaces for the library, Karen. So this is a question that could be similar to that. When will I be able to access printing facilities? External options are very costly.
As in through the library or other services?
Through all the printers in across the university.
Access to the university printers.
Yeah.
I guess as soon as we are able to open things up.
I know the library are looking at what they can open up and what are the most critical things to get available to students first. I wouldn't want to commit to a deadline because I don't know what their plan is in that detail, but they are looking at what are the most critical things, and I think that's the sort of thing they've got toward the top of their list.
Yeah.
So would the printers in other locations like the hub and other buildings still available?
Well, I mean, they would be available as soon as those buildings are open, but we have to make sure that we can open those buildings safely, whether it be the hub or the library or teaching and learning spaces.
I have been surprised that I have gotten used to not printing. Yeah. And I was terrible for printing. I loved printing things, but I have coped.
Yes. So. Yeah. I guess it's. I mean, yeah, I have the same dilemma. But if you're doing an assignment or something like that, you probably want the final draft to be there so you can look at it, because otherwise you do miss things, or I certainly miss things.
Yeah. Thank you. This one is regards to PhD students. Says my PhD submission requires me to present my choreographic practice. COVID led to the cancellation of my performance, with theater space being open in September, and if so, could a performance art students like me access the space for a rehearsal?
So I think that one, I can't see it on the list. So I think that's about a PhD student in theatre and drama who has to do a presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think and hope by then that spaces will be open, that they can do that. We have for those things that we have moved their examination to online. So other PhD vivas and everything we've done online. But if there was and some aspects of a performance, it's possible to do that, though it's not my area. But if it does require sort of a physical performance, as it were, then I'm sure we will be looking to open those spaces up to ensure that our PhD students get.
I know the research community have been starting to look at the advice about what the risk assessment process basically needs to look like. So we're busy risk assessing all our buildings at the moment, and we're providing guidance through the ethics committee structure about what that risk assessment for different pieces of research work needs to look like.
Yeah.
And there's some guidance and some framework about how to go about structuring that. So I think that will be the route that we will be managing those kinds of issues through.
And indeed, we've been doing some piloting, haven't we? Of opening up spaces initially for research students, because that way, if you pilot it with those students, that will give us learning for other students and what have you. And that's include therefore practical areas such as labs and workshops.
Currently it's labs and workshops, but obviously there will be a movement forward, and they're now thinking about things that involve human participants and what does that need to look like.
Yeah.
Thank you. This one, quick one. I can't remember if we've touched on this one now. It says, some of the courses have mandatory placement. How will students be able to engage with this?
Well, some of them they have continued. Certainly the health ones, they've continued. Others, they've had online placements, and we would look to continue with that. If there is a commitment to a placement and we can meet it, then that's our intention to do so. I mean, ideally, it would be face to face. It does very much depend on how things develop, I think. I don't know whether, Karen, you've been close to any of this at all.
I know that they are looking at the risk assessment process, making sure that picks out. And again, it depends what country you're doing this in and what the employers are able to support, what the students are able to do. We need to be mindful of any individual vulnerabilities. But I think they are also putting out some new FAQs, updating the FAQs on the portal shortly about placement activity.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We have one question that just came in. I'll read it. It says, what would be the balance between live and pre-recorded / pre-written content if it will vary between courses? Are there minimum aim for proportions of live lectures and content online?
I think it will be on a course by course basis. Some courses and some academics will still want to deliver lectures and sessions as live. But they will then, some of them will then record them so that other students can look at them at a separate time. It will very much depend on a sort of course by course basis and module by module basis. What we have said though is that we won't be having face-to-face mass lectures, as we've said, because we want to use that special commodity, as it were, to
You've muted yourself, Guy.
for a reason. I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop for us.
You're muted, Guy.
Sorry, something was happening at home that I had to
oh, okay, yeah.
stop from, but it's okay now.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it will be on a course by course and then module by module basis, really. We're working through some of that. All
right. So with students that go abroad as well, is this still going to be the same thing?
Sorry, how do you mean? How does the question mean? So, for instance, some students go on placement abroad, Erasmus here and Erasmus students as well. Will the program still continue, or would they practically just cancel it?
There's a lot of complexity in that. It depends very much, as you might have noticed, the world is in very different stages from a COVID perspective. We still have a commitment to want to support it where it's safe and we can. So if it's okay in that country and it's okay here, things can proceed, but we wouldn't want to give a blanket promise. I think it is going to need careful looking at. And again, as I said, there will be some more communications coming out shortly from those teams through the FAQs.
So from a health and safety aspect, Karen, how would the university ensure that these safety measures the university is put in place will be followed by students?
It's a great question. and staff indeed. So a big part of what we're going to try and do is make sure that it's all really clearly communicated before people come to campus. So for staff as well as for students, there will be induction programs that will let them know what the new normal is going to look like and what they'll need to do and how they can communicate towards it. It will be built into our disciplinary procedures that we could take action against people through disciplinary, but we would intend that only to be in very serious cases where there were serious issues. Most people, from my experience, just forget what they should have been doing for a moment. And so what we'll be aiming for is to try and help encourage all of us to help think about how we can help keep each other safe and have a very collaborative approach to looking after each other, because we all need to be reminded from time to time, and we all need to do what we can. This is only going to work if we pull together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This one is obviously, I don't know if it affects just the students or myself. With regards to the internet, the network has been, maybe because everyone is sitting at home, the network has been quite slow and sometimes it just breaks down completely. So for a student who has to submit his dissertation or coursework and all of a sudden he's working from home and doesn't have internet facilities and his deadline is due by 6 p.m., what measures would university put in place to support students like that? So if they are not able to submit, would they completely fail the course? Or
no, so I think there's a couple of things there. We took a paper to the university's Quality in Learning and Teaching Committee, QUILT, last week I think it was, which said that in the future the submission deadline, if it is exceeded by up to 24 hours for this sort of reason, then a student won't be penalised. So there have been occasions through things like Moodle and Turnitin, whereby the system has gone down or not worked, or there's a demand on it such that people can't submit. And there have been cases, a few, but there's been cases whereby people have been given a mark of 0 or it's been capped because they've literally been a couple of minutes late, in some ways through no fault of their own. I think what one would say is in life, generally speaking, if you can, you try to get things in early rather than at the last minute. If one is catching an aeroplane, one tries to get there a good couple of hours in time, just in case. And you give yourself a couple of hours before that, just in case there's a traffic jam or a puncture or something like that. But we're conscious that even despite that, sometimes things happen. So that's why we're going to give this 24 hours of up to 24 hours of grace period in the future. If there's other stuff that happens on top of that, so for example, when Moodle has gone down in the past, we've given everybody a blanket extra period of time to compensate. So I think that I hope we've got that covered now.
Thank you, Guy. This question has to do with Advantage modules. It says, will Advantage modules be online? If not, will it be clear when students sign up, which includes a face-to-face component?
We're working on that, and we're working on the expectation at the moment that Advantage modules will be online, but we're still working through that.
Thank you. I need to look through the questions to make sure all students' questions are answered. I think we've touched on almost all aspects of the questions, and most of them are just going to make you repeat yourselves over and over again. Thank you very much for coming. Once again, Karen, I can see that the safety of the students are well covered. And in terms of learning and educational experience as well, the university is working really hard to ensure that students get the most out of this situation we found ourselves. It's been a pleasure to have you guys on the KUSU Sabb chat, and thank you for answering all the questions. we'll have students, we'll keep it open for students to still ask their questions through the KUSU website. And if you would permit us, we could forward these questions to you. And when we get answers as well, we'll put it on our website so students can get more information and answers with regards to returning back to campus in September. Thank you once more. For the audience and the students, it's been a lovely time having you. With me is Guy from the Pro Vice Chancellor for Educational Experience, and Karen,
Group Head of Health and Safety.
Thank you very much. Yeah, see you in the next show when we have you again. It's lovely to meet you once more. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thanks so much. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.